because publisher is not keeping up right now, which is fun. Had to ship to a warehouse because right now I live in a logistics company. I'm not starting a company. I already have the people that I'm publishing Culting of America with. Ooh, look, I decided to get fun envelopes. The people that I'm publishing Culting of America with is like an independent publishing company. And the publisher, Sia, she is a former U.S. Navy officer, was a logistics officer, and decided to use her I Can Do Anything training to help people get books published. She could basically do anything you want. I think we're going to have, we definitely have some fun stuff in the GoFundMe, because we're trying to raise money for that now. But like, I'm probably gonna have some custom knitting needles made to go with the book and stuff like that. And she can do all of this. Her editor, the full-time editor at this publishing house is Amy Reed, who helped us write Uncultured and Un-American, the video book that you can see on my Patreon. So she is like, anyway, I just already have a great relationship with them. I just think I'm about to become a major client. So, part of what people always want to hear about is the publishing process. Yeah, I'm not really doing private messages right now because there's just too many, and I am trying to hire a virtual assistant. I decided I'm going to hire a military spouse for that. Which is interesting because there's a company called Squared Away that's military spouse virtual assistants, and I'm going to talk with them. But I also put straight up in there, I was like, part of my job is analyzing MAGA as a cult. So there's going to have to be a political alignment of some sort. But I'm actually starting first with a military spouse who's already in my book club. And I've been military spouse twice, once with the bad guy and once with the good guy. Both were terrible experiences because it's just the worst culture. Well, one time I was 21 years old, and one time I was home with a baby, special operations husband deployed, with me having the expertise in how helicopter pilots fall out of the sky in Afghanistan, and him flying the most dangerous missions over there. It's not the most fun time of my life. Also, when one parent is gone 30 to 60 days at a time, between 6 to 9 months a year, it's really only one person parenting. And you don't realize how much that is until you start doing it normally. And then we had to flip parenting very drastically, because then I was finishing a master's at Harvard and got a huge book deal, and he was just doing some flight certificates out of community college. And I was also at the point in my life where I was like, you need to enroll her in school. Like, I don't know anything about the American public school process. I personally would not want a 17-year-old woman that I know to join the Air Force or any branch of the military right now. So that's what I will say, which sucks, because it is still the best social elevator in this country. Okay, ladies, let's get in formation. If you're wondering if I listen to Six the Musical every day, the answer is yes. Yeah, I mean, it's nobody knows what's going to happen. You have presidents of America telling soldiers to remember their oaths, which is saying, which is reminding them not to follow any illegal or immoral orders that are not to the Constitution. Oh, and by the way, now that I've become like Captain Comfort in the strange position of defending the military, someone asked me a good question, which was like, so you call the military a cult, but then you say it can't be like taken over by this other cult. And my answer to this is a cult can be led by an idea or a person. And the idea that is the leader of the cult of the United States military is the Constitution. And everybody at every level is trained about that. And this Colt 45 was surprised his first time around to find that the military stood up to him and was not loyal to him. And also, I don't know if y'all saw that, like, they took away DEI training out of the Air Force, and there was such an outcry when they took away specifically mention of the Tuskegee Airmen and mention of women pilots in World War II. And there was such an outcry that they put it back 2 days later. Who can't hear me? Is it because of labels or is it because of music? And so I decided to get fun envelopes, but now I'm concerned it's maybe a little bit too party for how serious this book is. This is how many labels I have. This is why I have to have a fulfillment company now. Well, one day I might open the wine bookery. Read books and wine and cats and yarn. And in the back it can be like a co-working space. But it's also right next to my house, so I only have to open it when I want to. Just put a sign on the door being like, text this number if you need to hang out at the cat bookery, the wine bookery, sorry. Yeah, be the cat tamer and the wine pourer. The books is going to be mostly uncultured. The Knitting Cult Lady's Library. Then, so Mr. Knitting Cult Lady is a minimalist guy. Like, he doesn't even like things he's so hard to shop for, except now I know I can just get him feminist and anti-racist t-shirts. But I'm just grabbing water. But yeah, this house is not minimally decorated because we live in a townhouse and I need a librarian for all the books. So that's my plan, to offload some of them. Oh, and look, I got some prints in again. I'm going to pin them for a moment. There's also earrings in the shop. You just have to, if you like one that you see, then cool. If you don't, like, you can still buy it, and then just in the notes, you tell me what color you want it to be. I don't have it over here yet. YouTube is still making me prove that I own the copyright to my book. Anyways, this is a series that I did, and these are two of them. There's four. There's like a young girl. There's like a toddler. This girl. This is the healed one. This one's called Who Am I? This one's called Healed. And I just got some more prints in, so I'm excited about that. I still do plan to do the other two. I just have a lot going on right now. I can't stitch videos or duet videos. TikTok gives me violations for those because this is a shop. That's why you all never see me do that, unfortunately. Look, I can pin a bunch of stuff. That's what I was trying to do. Okay, still sticking labels on them. I mean, he was trying to crash USPS. Yeah. Mustache Man also privatized communications, and also like communications breaking down is a sign of war, right? Um, uh, but also, you know, every time I talk about the similarities here, I also want to talk about the differences. You know, Germany had 14 years of democracy, coming off of extreme hardships after World War One. And German people's personality, right? Like the nation's personality, they make this joke themselves. I studied there in college. The reason Germany has never had a popular revolution is because the peasants couldn't pay the train fare, right? We are America. We'll rip up your train tracks, right? Like the most American thing is not doing what you're told. And the Germans themselves said this about why the American military is so hard to beat, because we never follow our own doctrine. We just make whatever decision needs to be made at the time. Like that's our doctrine. And don't go into any fight you're not 3-1 likely to win. Those two things. Which is also why they're not going to fight the American people. But don't forget, we are America. We'll rip up your train lines. Specifically, don't forget that. So I'm hypothetically writing this novel where there's a modern civil war, and they rip up the train lines because that would hypothetically be very easy to do in America and very difficult to police and cause huge amounts of damage and help the guerrilla fighters, hypothetically. USPS branch that was being super racist. Makes sense. I mean, and this is how like everything's gonna change. And this is one of the things you realize when you study leadership is that like CEOs, leaders, or ideas, because ideas can be leaders, are super impactful on the culture of groups, especially high control groups like the US military. So it's fascinating because like units have reputations. I was in the 159th Combat Air Brigade, which like of the last 5 generals you've heard national scandals about, 3 of them were the leaders of our brigade. And like horrible place, already shut down, and shut down a decade ago. But like everyone in that unit traded out in about 3 to 6 years. But the unit has a reputation. The bases have a reputation. We all know that Fort Hood and Fort Campbell, where I was, and Fort Bragg are the worst for women. Most dangerous for your very survival, right? And they're called Fort Moore and Fort Liberty now. And still Fort Campbell, because we were on the good side. I forget where I was going. So, oh yeah, so same thing with leaders, right? So the same way that I was saying before the election that like having Kamala in the role of commander in chief was going to change the military, like having Pete Hogsworth as the Secretary of Defense is going to change the military for the worse. Taking women out of combat. Okay, so I was one of the first women on a deliberate ground combat team. Women have been fighting in ground combat since the Revolutionary War. They just didn't let us say it was on purpose until 2011, and we did these female engagement teams. And what was I going with that? Oh, it makes us safer, ironically. Putting women on combat teams makes us safer. Why? Because when you have a population trained to conduct violence on behalf of state, which is what a military does, and then you tell them, oh, you know, that little 10% of you there, that's not, they're not as good as you. Predictably, that is predictably going to end in violence against that group of people. And so back to the question of, do you want your 17-year-old female child to join the military? Not mine. Not the ones I know. It's gonna get worse. Like that vet bro that everybody hated. Someone described it very well. He has no morals, but he'll lie for you to get out of Jenny charges and war crime charges. Like the worst kind of dude that goes into the military is now Secretary of State. Like it's gonna get worse for everybody who is not a straight white cisgendered man in the military. This man has white nationalist tattoos that wouldn't even allow him to be enlisted right now, and he's running the Department of Defense. So like the Air Force and the Space Force is probably better, although it was started by Trump. So may I remind you, all cults promise space travel. Their ultimate promises are in another life, another body, another plane, another form, another planet. Also, the reason in my opinion, one of the reasons people are so culty about JFK, promised space travel. And there's so many comments. Can't keep up anymore. The audiobook is on Spotify. So my website shop, like I can't sell the audiobook. I do not own the masters of the audiobook. So you have to get it however you get audiobooks. It's also in libraries. If I owned it, I would be sending out autographed audiobooks because I already know how to do that. And I'm going to do that with my next book. So that's the answer to that. I don't own this book either, but I get to buy it as a reseller, which is how I can sell these. But my next book, I'm self-publishing, so I get to do whatever I want. And we are doing a fundraiser for that, which is in the link in the bio here. I don't know about YouTube yet. We're newer to YouTube. We're in the affiliate program now. However, they were like, no, you can't sell this book without proving to us that you have copyright. Which is not, because it's a picture on the inside of the book, but it takes them their time. Okay, wait, I need to go find the book that I have signed to Rachel. Okay. Find it right now. So it's just gonna get put aside for Rachel. Maybe it's here. Find that later. This one lady has the last name of my grandmother, great grandmother, who gave the Children of God cult leader his first property. Part of what made my family special. Because of course, all the people were living on abject poverty and a big farm nearby, the commune nearby in Texas, you know. But he was living in relative luxury in Dallas. because cults. We'll get people to rise up faster. I mean, I think this about them coming after veterans. They're coming after veterans benefits. I'm kind of like, do it. Because that will be a great way to radicalize a bunch of veterans. I'm going to get 13 million of us all mad at the same time. And we all know how to handle weapons. Another very significant difference between us and the Germans. We're all armed. And also, since we're all talking about Germany a lot, I'm going to tell y'all Trevor Noah's rule for accents, which is if they have been a colonial power, you can do their accent. I'm not good at it, but you know. And then he goes through how much of the world that is. It's pretty funny. Yeah, exactly. Go ahead and mess with veterans. Go right ahead. Like right now, their women stuff. Pissing off women veterans. Women joining the military is the only reason they hit their goals right now. All these angry bros, they're not joining the military because like most bullies, they're effing cowards. And like most bullies, I don't think Hog's Breath will fulfill his promises of getting them out of combat. My experience with Dallas, I went to college in Dallas. That's my experience. Graduated from UTD. Went back there 2 years ago and gave the commencement speech. Which is twice. As a student speaker the year I graduated. Thing which I did not apply for because I was taking 23 credit hours and working and losing my mind. And then I just got a call from the assistant dean on a Friday night after the deadline had lapsed. And she was like, Daniela, I expect your speech on my desk by Monday. So that's the kind of student I was. I realize now I just put myself into a high control environment by making straight A's after never having an education and also working between 1 and 4 jobs. Oh, damn it. I have a book to a Julie right there. So glad. Okay. Do I think they're trying to figure out a way to change top-down structure of the military? Sure. Are they going to accomplish that? No. It takes a really long time to change cultures in giant organizations. So, like, I know I said, like, we're going to start seeing this change, but, like, the entire modern military is built on the concept of mission command, pushing stuff down to the lowest level. It's highly technological. Like, this idea that he's just going to replace everyone in the military with loyalists, like, figments of imagination. Replace them with whom? I honestly think like the best thing is if he fires all the heads of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Like there's only like 3 levels of qualified people that you're going to go through before you're now have just a bunch of bozos that don't know how to drive the military. I was a captain in the Army, but if you give me a 5K ton truck, I don't know what the hell to do. And those generals and admirals are not getting anywhere without their drivers. But he's not replacing all civil servants. He's saying that he is. He's trying to. He's being sued. He's being stopped. DEI education was out of the Air Force for 2 days over a weekend, and it's now back. Like, this is where I'm saying, like, yeah, it's bad. It's terrifying. He wants to be a dictator. He wants to end the American experiment, sink our ship. I don't think he can. I think he's going to punch so many holes in it that our great-grandchildren are going to be paying for that. But I don't think he can just, like the American military is specifically made to be so complex and redundant that it's very difficult for a dictator to take command. That is how our military is built to operate. Donald Trump does not understand our military because he studies dictators. Yes, this is exactly what our government was set up to defend. So now we see and we work and we fight. This is fun with the secret pain. This space and shape is helpless. Unclear how they'll get rid of us non-bunker bros. I just better like keep my pinning on lock on TikTok. Yeah, I think it's entirely unclear how effed we are, and nobody knows how to predict what a cult leader is going to do. I made a video today, by the way, on my TikTok saying that just all about whether cult leaders are mentally deficient and have personality disorders, and they gave me a violation for hate speech. These are usually the easiest ones to fight. Like, no, this is my area of expertise. I was rationally discussing. Because it's fun, because the bros get me demonetized for hate speech all the time, and they just come back and say, I was very rationally and calmly sitting here explaining something in my area of expertise. And then they go back and they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. Keep showing up here going, didn't you get demonetized? I'm like, you tried. It's funny how cancel culture is not real if you don't know where I get my power from. It's called consequence culture. My thoughts on Shady Vance. He would be more dangerous. I also just sometimes I'm just like, just something must be going on in his head. He's like, so I just joined the military and then I wrote a book and then now I might be president. Go get a power cord. Like, not even might be, like probably gonna be, because any man of Cult 45's age and health is unlikely to last 4 more years. But like, what song, y'all? When Margaret Thatcher died, the #1 song, I think in the UK, but I think they just made it the #1 song, was Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. Like, we need to decide what song we are going to have trending when they lower those flags to half-mast for Cult 45. Yeah, Hamilton in the background. I mean, it's just a bunch of musicals. Because I'm writing a musical. I'm stealing tons and tons of lines. It is legal. It's called a pastiche. Hairspray. Yeah, it's gonna be so tacky today, and it's gonna be so fun to watch them be like, come on, show some respect. Every time I hear it, I'm like, I saw the Obama toilet paper, y'all. My in-laws had it all over their homes. I don't think they're going to get rid of veterans benefits. So stupid. Like, right now, you actually kind of have a little bit of control over veterans because many of us are living on that money and depending on that healthcare. You want to yank that away from us too? After we already found out you lied to us about the war and then we betrayed all our people on the way out? Really? You want to kick out all the women and trans and LGBTQ military officers and people and like, you don't think they're going to come for you? I did write this book that I'm packaging. Since I am not Ronald Trump, I don't sign books that I didn't write. Signing the Bible. This is my memoir about growing up in the Children of God religious cult and going into the cult of the U.S. Army. And my thoughts about General Milley, Mad Dog Mattis, many other of these leaders is they stood up to Trump. They also refused to put their name on the first book by a woman veteran in the mass market that really takes on grape culture. Because, as Mad Dog said, it's outside his area of expertise. Even though 2 years before that, he had said that MST, military schmexual trauma, is a cancer on the body of the military. And here he had a book by a specialist. And it's almost like when we read books, we learn how books work. They teach us things outside of our area of expertise. And my response that I didn't get to send him was, no shit, sir. That's why I wrote the book. I also wrote a 10-point plan on how to end grape culture in the military that I presented to 12 NATO countries. But like, we're going the other way now. But you know what? Interesting time to be an expert on the bad guy. I am hiring as fast as I can. Also hairspray. What is because they're active, they can't talk about it? No, none of them were active at the time. He was the retired whatever. And every single book by a male veteran in the mass market has been blurbed by a general on active duty. Like, one of these days, you will see me on CNN with my book blurbed only by the highest ranking LGBTQ woman in the military, and then 17 books by men that are all blurbed by men. The rule is actually not that the military members are not allowed to be political. That's what people want to think so that they don't have to tell you their politics. You're not allowed to do political activities in uniform. You couldn't be a captain sitting here in uniform talking about the things that I'm talking about. But they can have personal opinions. They can even have personal political opinions as long as they're not in uniform. And no, calling yourself General so-and-so does not qualify. Like, they didn't want to. Actually quite heartbreaking to send my book out to 10 men who are very publicly supposed to be trying to make a better culture, including one who wrote a book all about racism. And not a one of them would put their name on my book. And like, there's a chapter published in Rolling Stone magazine. It's not because the book wasn't good or didn't get their attention. It's because I actually put down on the page the thing that they say, that women in the army are either a or a There's also been an uprising of y'all trying to explain to us very unkindly that it's time to stop using baby words and grow up. And like, maybe don't lecture creators on things if you don't understand the rules of the platform on which they make their business. Someone was like, I wrote Mustache Man's real name and my comment was immediately deleted. Yeah, we don't say Yahtzee because it tickles the cockles of our soul. There we go. Fortunately, Brittany's common enough of a name that if you misspell it, you'll get another one. Yeah, I think we might be in the last week or two of the signed books. I mean, I'm still always going to have like a link somewhere for it if you really want one, but I need to be able to offload some of this and, write that other book that I'm supposed to be writing. Today, though, is podcast day. So at noon, I sit down with White Woman Whisperer, and we have our crochet projects, and we talk about deconstructing white supremacy, like the cult that it is. And then we have tonight, we have Cults and the Culting of America. And that is like this podcast, but with guests. Or this channel, but with guests. And what is buzzing? Yeah. Plus, I now have to rollerblade to and from school to pick up Knitting Cult Baby. The estimate, I want it to be November. I'm just not sure how reasonable it is that I'm going to get everything finalized by March. But that's what we're trying for. Which is also why I have to offload being a book fulfillment company. Because OMG, we sold 200 books on Sunday. There's also some earrings in the shop if anyone wants. These are my circular logic earrings. I thought for so long about what to do with bangles. And I came up with these. And you can just click on anyone that you like. And then you can just, in the comments, tell me what colors you want. Or if you don't, I try to make them the same. But the beads might be different because they're all custom. My necklace is a little version of the book. Yeah. Buying it on Amazon's great. Actually, my talent manager, she was like, people are always asking where to buy it from you that benefits you the most. So like telling people to go to their traditional sources or their small book dealers might be good right now. But no. All of the ways you buy it are amazing. I was very well paid for the story of my life. And I am mostly using proceeds from this book to fund the next one, so that I can do whatever I want with it. Why am I not worried about World War III? I don't think the international security community and our intelligence community is going to let that man start it. Someone else was asking, is like, are other countries actually protest? I mean, I do believe they're protesting for us. I don't think any country in the world can come for Americans. The U.S. made a big difference the last time, but it was also mostly Russia. Oh, what's this one? Dear Evan Hansen. I think this is the one that says, we start off with stars in our eyes. We start off thinking we can belong. And I'm like, oh, that has to go in the Cult Baby musical. I mean, but that's what I mean, right? So if Trump put tariffs on Canada and then Canada cut off power to the U.S., that would destabilize the U.S., which would destabilize the world. Like, international relations are bullies on the playground, and he's a big bully, but there's a lot of other bullies out there that can, like, take on the president in international relations. So, yeah, okay. So here's why I don't think a civil war, at least what they call military intelligence, a shooting war, a hot war, is going to happen. And that is because, like, our military, like, because of the Civil War, do they geographically abuse us to this day by sending you around the country and the world every 3 to 4 years. And why? Because there is not a single unit in the Department of Defense, National Guard is different, Department of Defense, that comes from somewhere. It's people from everywhere. Everything is mixed. 45% of your unit is voting Democrats. That doesn't mean the other 55% is voting red. You cannot conduct military operations without 45% of your military. That's not how the modern military works. You can't even do it without 20%, and that's just the women. And the reason they don't want us in combat is because we stop the raping and the pillaging and the pointing your weapons at the American people. It's not like it used to be with like Roman decimation. You get rid of 1/10 of your force and you're just 1/10 less people marching. Like, you don't know how to operate any of your stuff. You're combat ineffective. And people don't realize how large the US is. People keep being like, are they going to close the borders? If we could close the borders, then we wouldn't be having a problem with being overrun by illegal immigration, in heavy quotes. And people are like, well, what? We have the Atlantic on one side and the Pacific on the other side. OMG, America-centric. There are two giant countries above and below that you can run away into. Not that I'm saying that doesn't take privilege and access. Just saying, I think you're forgetting we're not the whole continent. I think if you want to know my opinion about whether women should join the military, you have to read my book or watch more videos. I'll tell this little story. last week I was at the VA sitting next to a bunch of men. And so then I put on my text apps that every time I'm sitting next to a male veteran, I'm wondering how many people he has assaulted. And that is y'all's legacy. And then I got a host of men clutching their man pearls and being mortally offended on behalf of veterans and how I could possibly say that. And not a one of them thought that I was sitting at the VA for my effing healthcare because I'm a veteran too. And that is also male veterans' legacy. If our number one experience with them, like I wasn't even offering an opinion there. If my number one experience with them was that they were all honorable, that's what would come to mind when I saw them. Not that every branch of the VA is having to build separate waiting rooms for women because we have been so traumatized by our male colleagues. I once quit the board of a military organization that I was on because, and I quote, "Y'all can't stop raping and schmurdering us." That's what I think about women joining the military. But also, we want strong women in the military because now that they're 20%, that is the first time that stereotype theory tells us you can start addressing subconscious negative stereotypes about your demographic. Now think about that and go pull up a map about where African Americans are less than 20% of each state. I can tell you it's nowhere west of Texas. More than. Moving from Seattle to Maryland taught me quite a lot about how negative stereotypes about a group of people work, even if you never yourself have held any kind of like racist ideology. Of course you can cross the border without a passport. Probably can't cross checkpoints without a passport. The whole thing about borders, same thing about lines in the sand. They don't really exist. Yeah, and look, I wasn't saying that all the male veterans were assaulters. I'm married to one that I know for a fact has never made a woman uncomfortable. But when other women are sitting next to him in the VA, they don't know that. And that is all of the men's legacy. Because if all of y'all actually would sacrifice yourself to protect women, the thing you weaponize against us to keep us out of combat, then that wouldn't be, our thing would be, oh, we're safe. When civilian women that visit military bases are told which places are safe to run on post, their answer is always some version of what the F? Why is everywhere on a military base not safe to run? Every military base in America and abroad has a place colloquially called Grape Alley, where women are warned not to go. Imagine if there was a place on a military base that were too dangerous for the men to go. Oh yeah, it wouldn't exist. They would mount a military operation and clear it. And when there was a man running around Kandahar airfield graping men, they caught him in 3 days. The fact that it's called military schmexual trauma and the fact that we don't know who's the good guy and who's the bad guy, that's all male veterans. All of them. It should be wildly clear who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. Yeah, fucking love it when say, they would sacrifice themselves for us. Like, first of all, soldiers sacrifice themselves for soldiers. When Sal Giunta did it, we gave him a Medal of Honor. So you're saying you'll lay down your life for your brother, but not your sister. That's what you're saying. Men protecting women is a myth and always has been. And it's all of y'all's problem. That the first thing that comes to mind when we see a male stranger is, can I stab him with my car keys? Oh, we've also found out that in every culture in the world, men hesitate before unaliving women in war. This still comes from misogyny and the infantilization of women. Don't worry. It's not like the men are being good. But that's advantage to them having us on their team. Or as the Black Ops guy who's trying to recruit me in the book says, there's a reason that it's James Bond and a James Bond, well, he says girl, of course it should be woman, and she should be named. But, you know. Yeah, men are supposed to protect us from who? And then my favorite is when men show up to these videos and they say, you know, men get raped too. You know what? I did know that. Two things. Most men in the military are sexually assaulted. They just consider it hazing. They code it as hazing. And men who are sexually assaulted tend to pass it down. Almost every woman veteran that any of us knows has been sexually assaulted and has never passed it down. That was one. And two, I do know that men are great. Please tell them to come add their more powerful voices to our fight. And then they tell me, you know, Daniela, they're really mean to the men when they talk about their sexual trauma. And like, you think they buy me cookies? Oatmeal raisin. Not once. If you're not out there every day advocating for men, shut up and sit down. It is all men that allow it to happen. It is. All of you. Why is it that every time we hear about another woman veteran raped or murdered, only women veterans are the ones screaming about it? Where the F are all of the good guys, the honorable guys? I wrote a fucking spoken word poem about this once. I need to find it. Like, same as the good uncles in the cult. Until I wrote my book, I thought I loved my stepfather. And then I wrote my book. And I realized that every time I needed him, he was standing at the back of the room doing nothing to help me. It's all of them. The fact that women have to pull each other aside in a military unit and say, watch out for the colonel, the brigade commander, because he likes you. Hey, Baltimore. I might do a happy hour there soon. It's all of you until it's none of you. Which is very interesting. My friend Danielle, who you can read about in Uncultured, She is a civil affairs officer now, and she was deployed to Djibouti, where she partnered with women from the Djiboutian army. And so she asked, because she's my friend and I was working on this book, and so she asked her, she said, do you all have a lot of problem with like the male soldiers raping the women? And she said, oh no, not at all. She said if that happened, they would be drug out to the square and stoned. What we do have a lot of problems with is men beating their wives so hard, their officer wives, that they can't come to work. I have another one for you. I asked a German military scholar, who's one of my oldest friends, if he could give me a quote on how many about the American military raping women in Germany after the victory day. And he said, oh no, they didn't. And I was like, what? He said, American and British leadership cracked down so hard after they graped their way through France that the Americans and the Brits were actually very well behaved in Germany. And so I tell you, it's a leadership thing, and it's all of you. Because the greatest generation raped 15 million women across Europe, and then came home and put all of our military and leaders into place where they are today. 1 in 4 children in America is raped in their own homes. It's all of you until it's none of you. And also, saying it's not all men, but it's many. There's no point to that. Those are just wasted words that are guaranteed to upset the person that you're talking to. Yes, men could be honest with themselves. And there's a very good, I actually heard of this veteran say it once. And he was like, oh, the way I say things is, don't you dare say anything at work that you wouldn't want a man to say to you in prison. And I was like, oh, thanks. I like that one. Because what is the image that men have of prison? That anyone bigger than them can do anything they want. And by that, they mean put something inside of them that they don't want inside of them. Welcome to all of life for women. And then y'all think that somehow we would not be good at combat when we have spent all of history fighting you for our very survival. No man would say he would trust all men around his daughter. Not one of y'all. And that's y'all's problem to fix. Like, I got racism and white supremacy. I'm taking that one on. Sexism and misogyny and sexual violence, that's y'all's problem. It's been said violence is a human problem. And then Rebecca Solnit, who's basically credited with coining mansplaining, wrote a book called Men Explain Things to Me, where she shows very, very clearly with data that violence is a male problem. Yeah, what about the 70,000 men? What about Giselle Pellicot in France, whose husband hired, or offered, or allowed, or charged 80 men to come grape his drugged wife? 30 of them said no. 0 of them called the police. It's all of y'all. But you know what? The reason that they're so angry and scared right now is because they know they understand how pie works, and they do understand that if it is more for everyone else, it is less for them. They don't want that. Promise of white supremacy tells the straight white men that they're supposed to be at the top. You're not supposed to say it out loud. It's just supposed to happen. But you know what? I love that they're coming for affirmative action and DEI, because white women are the primary recipients of affirmative action and DEI. And if white women get mad, guess what? We control more money than men do. American white women control more money than the billionaires do. Trillions and trillions of dollars. Mostly, we do the household finances. Why? Because it's exhausting. Not me. That would be silly. I mean, he's probably going to ban trans people. He did it the first time. They're already going after them on passports. The Secretary of Defense is probably just going to say women in combat is a failed experiment. Get them all out of branches. Put them back to being support. These are things they can do. These are things that are very stupid for them to do. But they can, and so they probably will. Getting a headache from yelling. Don't worry, bros. I'm making money. Oh, whoever I invited, please don't come up. That was a mistake. This song is like, people are like, this is every older sister ever, but also like, this is Cult Babies. Under the surface. So this is a thing I invented called a scarfigan, where I take a scarf and turn it into a cardigan with crocheted or knitted sleeves. I got this one in Portugal this year. But then when I do fuzzy sleeves, we call it a fuzzigan. Because we're adorable. I think we should be protesting. I mean, I'm wondering, like, where are the leaders? Like, what's happening? I also made a PDF Culty knitting patterns book, which you can get on my Matreon or on my Hopify. You can also get it in my shop, but that's like a physical copy that I mail you, and it's more intended to be a PDF. But it shows you like the love bomb collar, and then also what is love bombing. I think it's adorable, and you get to see knitted cult puppy, as we call him now. Tomorrow's a day of protest. But like, what are we doing? I really don't want to be the leader, y'all. I made some poor choices on Sunday that I spent all day yesterday paying for. But like, I was like, I don't want to lead a revolution. I really don't. But I think I at least have to start a brigade of anti-racist Karens. I just want to be at home with my kid and like enjoy my nice life, and now it's like time for revolution. I do need 4,000 of us, and I'm in DC every day. Well, I live 15 minutes from the Capitol. In Maryland, where 100% disabled veterans don't pay property taxes. I think I'm probably going to start a Matreon level where women can choose to pay $4.80, $14.80, or $48. 48% of us that can absolutely handle this. And then we're going to use the money to donate to the ACLU and to hire Black women to teach us and also just teach each other how we can weaponize the whiteness. Because the thing about deconstructing whiteness is once you deconstruct it and you understand how it's been used, you can use it as a shield for those who don't have it and as a weapon for those who want to weaponize it. For example, they have weaponized, nobody wants to see dead American women and mothers to keep us out of combat and military advancement for a long time. And of course, they mean white. Nobody wants to see dead white ladies is a weapon. They're not going to just stand there and mow down 4,000 of us. They're not. And we can just be the point people. Tip of the spear. Just the tip, ladies. Just the tip. That'll be the name of one of our battle strategies. Yeah, they keep sexism out of everything, which is why, like, they've had women in combat roles for a decade now. I did that. I was part of that. Wrote a best-selling book about it, too. And diversity does what it always does, leads to better results, right? And this is like the antiquated idea about diversity everywhere, right? Part of the argument I'm making of culting of America, why did we walk back from bureaucracy to charismatic leadership, which by definition is unstable? Because we had an apocalypse, which was the industrial age running smack dab into the intelligence age and leaving absolutely nothing untouched, right? And industrial era leadership and management thinking tells us that everyone being exactly the same, well-oiled cog in a machine is the best outcome. Just like when we ask if women are good enough to be men in combat, we are presupposing that men do combat the best. But what the intelligence age, the information age, is teaching us is that when everybody's a little different, that creates friction. And you know what friction creates? Energy. And so, and also, this is a tiny thing, y'all, but the Air Force got rid of DEI. Specifically, they were going to take out mention of Tuskegee Airmen and women pilots in World War II. And there was such an outcry from all of us that they put it back 2 days later. It was gone for the weekend. So there's nothing that we can do. We can stand in the way and make them come and get us. And they don't want to see a bunch of unalive little white ladies. Nobody wants to see that. It would break the American heart. Because you know what? Only white women can make more white men. And they are terrified. They're absolutely terrified that white men are going away. So, we can stop making more white men. Same. I stopped before I ever started. Only one girl. Yeah. again, women have been in ground combat since the Revolutionary War, always. But your National Guard women back in 05, 04, 05 were not allowed to say they were on deliberate combat missions. That's the very like word games that the Army played. And then when the female engagement team, when they were like, we have to, because in 2010, David Petraeus named it a counterinsurgency. And instead of saying, wow, nobody's ever won a counterinsurgency and leaving, we were like, we have to win the hearts and minds. And so to do that, we're going to respect them out of war. And so we need women to help us search and seize. And so what happened was, as soon as you say deliberate combat missions where we expect things to go bang and boom, as soon as you're calling it deliberate and not incidental, now all of a sudden you have a bunch of commanders, which happened with me, my physical body, a bunch of commanders sending untrained and under-armored soldiers on combat missions. The U.S. Army does not operate this way. And so 3 months in to the year of patrolling that I did with armor that wouldn't necessarily keep me alive because nobody remembered to think about boots. The 3 months in, they had already started the cultural support teams. So I have people try to shut me down and call me a liar and stolen valor like all of the time with this. And like, we're not having this anymore. When Captain Mestinek, the intelligence officer, decided to write a book where she was going to claim to be the first at something, she did go to Fort Knox and ask the military records department what to say. Actually, sorry, a colonel did so on her behalf. And then I learned how to talk about why it was so important. And also the trans ban is very personal to me because once they took down the combat ban, which again, we put our under-armored bodies out there to prove their little games. And then once they realized it doesn't matter what gender you are to do combat, that made them realize it doesn't matter if they can tell what gender you are. So yeah, I take it all very, very personally. Okay, so let's sign you up for the draft. I love when you haters try this one with me because one, I guarantee you I have more military experience in my shrivelly little pinky than you have in your entire goddamn soul. And second of all, you're only saying that as an insult if you think we're worse at doing war than you. And it's in fact laughably stupid to think that women are bad at combat when we've been having to fight you off for all of goddamn history. And third, I would fucking love to see it. We have been daring you to draft all of us for generations. Come and fucking get it. Thanks for making me money in your comments. Yeah. Just try to draft Gen Z and their parents. America saw what happened when they tried to ban TikTok. What do you think they're gonna do when you try to ban Gen Z? Draft Gen Z. Sorry, I was trying to do what do you think they're gonna do when you try to steal our whiskey? I gotta get better at it. Come and get us. The same ones of you that keep us out of combat try to say, oh, well, fine, we'll draft you. Come and fucking draft us. Not gonna lie, I would love to see what a brigade, a company of 18-year-old women tankers who didn't want to be in the military would innovate. I guarantee you our bedazzled tanks could kill people just as good. By the way, a drafted army is much less culty because we all buy into our own indoctrination. So come and draft us. I dare you. Not me, of course. I can't ever serve in the military again. Ooh, Michaela's gonna get the gold sticker today. And then I'm going to have to go because I need to drink water and not have a headache. And time to go talk about racism and white supremacy. Oh, is he gone? Not a word. Not a word from you. Okay, then draft us, huh? Yeah. Coward, just like I thought. This is why men shouldn't be in the military. That and all the graping. And you see, the only reason that they don't want us in combat is because women tend to stop the graping and the pillaging and the schmilling of children. We get all their fun missions canceled. Grape wasn't even a war crime until 1996. Thanks, Serbia. All right. I'm out of steam, so I have to go. I need an intern. I told Knitting Cult Baby I would pay her $25 an hour to help me stuff envelopes, and she still said she would think about it. Kids these days. Thanks for hanging out with me while I worked. Your order is probably in there or in here. If it's been more than 2 weeks, please contact me. But just between me trying to do it all myself and USPS, we're not as fast as Amazon. But I'm working on it. Thank you all for hanging out. Yep. Books are pretty good money right now. But, my business is selling books. And I have a vested interest in not living in a dictatorship because that doesn't go so well if your business is selling books. Bye, y'all.